I share the link around.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So those that come in for the video get a little extra little zing. You know, kind of like that bonus material.
Yeah, this is the behind the scenes footage with the director's commentary and,
Director's commentary.
uh,
Yes, yes. Why isn't it?
if, the dog doesn't behave herself, she'll make an appearance again this evening. So,
Yes. Looks like we are live now. Just sharing it out. Keep saying the old thing, which is weird. Refresh it. Ah, there we go. So how's the weather going on there?
well, it was raining pretty horrible this morning into this afternoon, but it's now as hot as can, be possible.
Yeah.
Short of existing in the ninth level of Hades. It's Southwest Georgia. It's not much you can really do with it.
At least
Really only...
you're not at
Go ahead.
112 degrees like here.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet. The summer. It's still early summer here.
Well, it's still early summer here, but yet here we are. So.
Yeah, I understand. I sympathize. Believe me, I do. I'm seeing a lot of basic Dungeons and Dragons behind you behind your left-hand shoulder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the basic, all the way up to
box sets,
all the way up to the
and then
Immortals.
Spelljammers and.
Yep. Then you got right up here is the old roll aids, the Sentinels, Apocalypse, Demons 2, Demons 1. You remember roll aids, right?
Vaguely. I saw more of it than I ever actually did anything with.
Oh yeah, dude, they were a godsend for D&D, I can tell you that.
But that's it. It's like a lot of people aren't aware that when D&D first started, they outsourced a lot of the modules, original modules, to like a bunch of different people. And they have a whole series of modules that were written by, and I can't remember who these guys were, but there's a company for it now, and basically they were selling them out of the back of like their station wagon or whatever at whatever conventions they would show up to, and they had I guess whatever, they had to pay so much up to TSR, and they kept so much for themselves, and then TSR realized, hey, we could be making this money ourselves.
Duh.
Why are we outsourcing it to somebody else? Yeah. So, but it's like this sort of a long lost AD&D stuff.
Alrighty. So we have a couple things to go over, so we'll start the show right now.
Okay.
We have 3 emails, and we just have 1 iTunes review, which I'll read because I always appreciate anybody that takes the time to futz around with iTunes and give us a review, actually, like an actual written review. So I like to give them a little, hey, thanks, guys. So we're at episode number 11. Let's do this. 3, 2, 1. Classic FASERIP podcast. I am Vince, sitting with Keith. Keith, how you doing tonight?
I am well, sir. Thank you for having me back.
Awesome. As you know, if you're not on our website or you're not on our Facebook page, you should be, because, that's where it is. But anyway, we announced that Keith will be joining me as a permanent co-host on the show. So going forward, you'll be hearing the lovely tones of Keith going on and his wonderful advice.
The stylish yet functional advice.
Yes, the wonderful advice. So we're in number 11, issue number 11, if you want to do that, because you want to mimic a kind of like a comic book type thing going on here. And we're live also on YouTube, so you can always check us out. And we'll be doing this live on YouTube on a regular basis every time we record. So it's every 2 weeks. So the next one will be sometime at this point in August. Yeah, about August, I'm thinking. But anyway, let's get right to the... let's get into this. So if you want to email us, just hit us up at askthedm@evildm.com. I'm using that email address temporarily while I don't have access to the bullpen one right now. And Matt is out of town, so I'm unable to grab the emails from there except what he forwards to me, and I don't want to keep bothering him over and over. So, and he said he'd set it up when he gets back for me. Anyway, so we have 3 emails coming in, but first, I just wanted to say thank you to Cager Cage, who took the time to jump on iTunes, give us a 5-star review for our podcast. He's from Canada, it says, and he titles it, "Love it. Great to see people keeping this great game alive. Keep up the great work. Perhaps record a session or 2 of FASERIP. Thanks." Done that. Check out my actual play podcast, Marvel's X Universe. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, and all the podcast places where you can find podcasts. It's pretty much anywhere at this point. I've tried to get it to every platform for everybody to use. I didn't want to leave anybody out. You know, sometimes some people like to download it, some people don't, you know, whatever. So, thank you very much, Cager Cage. If you want to give us a review, head over to iTunes, pull up our podcast, give us a rating, and then take a moment, since you're already there, leave a written comment, because we get to see those. We don't get to see the star ratings you just leave and take off. Not that we don't appreciate that, we do, but if you write it, we can see it, and we can read it and give you a shout out. And we appreciate everything that everybody does for us. Thank you very much, man. So we do have 3 emails tonight. I'm going to let you pick, Keith. I'm going to read 1, 2, and 3. They're not long. I just summarized them, but I'll allow you to pick email number 1, email number 2, or email number 3. Which one do you want me to start with?
I don't know. Let's go with number 2.
Number 2, Charles G. writes in and says, "Magic games have always been a challenging game to me. Think you guys can do an episode on Magic and the various mechanics that come along with it?"
Yeah, sure. I think that's certainly a possibility. I mean, everybody has their favorite Magic character, I would think. Some people like Doctor Strange, other people like Dr. Fate. I myself am a John Constantine fan. I mean, if you know,
but
yeah, that's pretty dark. But you know, not really a Marvel character, but you know.
No, that's DC we're talking about, or actually,
oh yeah,
different imprint. But I mean, you could still, you know, bring him over if you want. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
I like Constantine, definitely. I love the character. I love I love how they portrayed him now in the TV show. Actually, really good job.
I thought it was pretty good.
Matt Ryan, spot on, dude.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll plan for a Magic show, because that's going to be not a very easy show to do, to be honest. Magic is so, I mean, other than the main books, is a whole supplement by itself of Magic, and I think there was a bunch of articles written about it too. And Magic is a beast by itself.
Oh yeah, I know there was a Dragon magazine article about it that had offered, I think, an alternative train of thought on how Magic could be worked in Marvel. And I'll have to see if I can dig it up and look at it.
We'll have to discuss through email or ever chat what we want to do, what we want to look at as for our source, and what would be the easiest thing for us to cover, because it's going to be looking at Magic itself. I've looked at it in the past because one of my players in my group was like, "Oh, I want to try Magic," and I'm like, and it's just a lot to take in at once. So,
oh yeah.
So after I gave him all the books, and I said, well, we'll both have to sit down and actually hash this out, because I've never actually played a Magic character myself. I know the rules, but I've never played one. And he's just like, he looked at all the books and was just like, yeah, I think I'll just play this. He changed his mind, so.
Mutants are good. I don't need Magic.
Nah. Okay, so we got email number 1 and 3 left. Which one you want me to grab now? They're both just one-line summarized, so Pretty simple.
3.
David D writes in and asked, he wants to know actually, how do player characters actually level up in the game? He was a little confused on that.
Well,
There really isn't a
there
level,
is, yeah, there's really not a level per se that, there's not a way to for people to level, quote unquote. It's more of you gather karma points, which are by extension experience, and use those to purchase increases in attributes, new talents, skills, power sets, power ranks, contacts, resources, modify die rolls, and that's really, if you're going to get into that's probably as close as you're going to get to a level scenario for this game.
and it takes a lot of karma to just even get new powers. So,
Oh yeah,
and I think there was, if I remember correctly, someone wrote in one of the Dragon magazines about it, and it was an advice section. And I can't remember exactly who wrote it or what issue. I just remember reading it, and it was like, superhero characters never actually gain new powers that often. Generally, for years upon years, they stay the same way. And it takes a big major event in the comic history for them to get new powers. So, I mean, just Wolverine is re-submerging now after how many years of being around, because he died, now he came back and died, but now he's coming back. But apparently he has some new power when he comes back with this new run that just came out. So that's been, what?
Yeah,
20 years or something since he's had a new power?
That's one of those things where if you go back and you read the reprints where he appears in the Hulk first, and then you read him coming into the X-Men, and originally it was like he was just this crazy fighter who had adamantium claws.
Right.
And one of the guy who created him was like, my intention was that the claws were in the gloves, and that he could, anybody could put the gloves on and thus become this ultimate fighter. And they said that John Byrne was the first one to draw them without the glove on, popping the claws out. And they were like, "Oh my God, the claws come out of you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, why didn't you tell us?" He's like, "Well, you never asked." So, and you have that whole mystique about the character. But yeah, you're right. I mean, for 40 years, new stuff would show up, oh, well, he has enhanced senses, or he has, a regeneration factor. And then that was it. What more did you really need? He's Wolverine. Now I don't know what the heck he does now. So it's probably some crazy laser beam out of his eyes or claws or something. Who knows?
I haven't been really following. I just know he's been resubmerging, and I heard a bunch of people complaining about how he has another power now, and I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being was the article was that most superheroes will go through their entire comic book lifespan and never gain new powers. So for a character to gain a new power in the game, it should be a lot of karma. One of the characters in my game, after I would say 15, 16 sessions of playing, he finally got a new power. He saved up every piece of karma he had, and he got himself a new power. So that gives you an idea. There's right there. So that's basically how you can level up. You all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And the final email comes from Rob M, who writes in and asks for advice on running cosmic and magic-based campaigns, and how to keep it interesting without turning it into one big celestial elder demon hunt. Never run anything cosmic, so.
Well,
have you?
Yeah, that would be. That's one of those things where you have to have people who I think are the right mindset for that. I've had players who, oh, let's play a villain game, and it becomes I don't want to say a pissing contest, but that's essentially what it is. And you're sitting there wondering, why did I do this? Why on God's green earth did I do this? And then again, I've had other people who, I think I talked about the guy who in the Heroes game had plant control, and
right,
that's a fairly innocuous power, and you're thinking, plant control, really? That's something, and then you think about it. think about the applications of that: mold, spores, pollen. There was a run of Thunderbolts where Plant Man uh, grew molten spores in somebody's lungs and killed them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why has no one ever thought of that in the 40 years Plant Man's been around? It took somebody, going, yeah, you could do that. And I guess, everybody thinks of certain things more dimensional nature in terms of some of that stuff. But no, if you want advice on cosmic, space related, extra dimensional, my advice would be have what you want to do already set down on paper or recorded somewhere, some sort of idea as to where you're going with it before you start. Because it's been my general experience that you'll want to do A, B, C, and the players will go E, F, G,
Always.
H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, it's a matter of, I think it's also getting the right people to play it. Because if you get people who aren't into whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's staving off the forthcoming of the Celestials, or the battle between Asgard and Olympus, or the battle for a woman's soul between heaven and hell, whatever the game is about. If they're not into it and they're not going to play it with the right temperament and tone, and that comes with GMing too. I'd be very weary about even starting it. I mean, you might want to start slow and just sort of work your way into that one.
Yeah, like I said, I've never run a cosmic campaign, so I'm just listening. Whatever advice you have, the people will have to listen to you because I have nothing to offer for cosmic. It's just well beyond my suit to play. So,
and it's one of those where the few times I've done it, it either turned out really, really good or really, really bad. And there's no gray area for it. I mean, like I said, you either have people who are really into that or it's a train wreck.
Understood. Alrighty. So those are the emails we have for this week that we pulled out of the email bag. If you want to write us, give us a shout out either on Facebook or hit us up via email at askthedm@evildm.com. I have right here on the YouTube here. If you look down, just shoot us an email.
Over there.
Right over there. Right there. Yeah.
Over there.
Or you can head over to classicfaserip.com and click on Contact Us or Contact, and you can send us an email through the email form that they have there. But anyway, let's get on to the main show. Now, Keith, you had picked this topic after we discussed it for a little while back and forth during the last couple of weeks. Team building concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And you had given me some articles to look at in Dragon Magazine, one of them entitled It's Clobbering Time, which I had printed out right here.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what magazine that actually came from because you just gave me that as a PDF.
To be honest, it was part of a compilation. So I remember reading the original article years and years ago, but I couldn't tell you what issue it was from now. So, and I don't think they annotated the Marvel file.
But it is by Dale A. Donovan, so in case you wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
And Keep the Heroes Flying, a superhero campaign is built on more than just combat, borrowed by Carlton Sue. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Tsui. Sue. Sui? I don't know. But it looks like this.
It's a good one.
What's that?
I said it's a good one.
So, if you want your battles to be a little bit more than just run in and attack, these articles will give you some good advice on combat strategy beforehand, kind of breaking it down into different levels of combat categories. For example, and I'll go over them real briefly here before we start, the infantry division of your combat. And yes, they use military terms to explain all this, so it breaks it down really easy for you. And then they break the infantry down past and go to speedsters, how you can use them in combat. Then the airborne division, how to use those. Shock troops, artillery, stealth troops, and mentalists. Special forces and using power stunts is basically how they describe that article. So what made you decide that we wanted to talk about tactics this week?
Well, tactics and team building, I think, is something that can be done, and when it's done right, I think it certainly helps the game, as long as you don't have too much overlap. It's like any good role-playing game, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or Marvel or whatever. I think if you have 6 people playing the same type of character, you have 6 samurais or 6 Jedis or whoever. You're going to get the same sort of adventure every week. On the other hand, maybe you have, and I think it falls into, for me, the Avengers or the Justice League were good examples of team building. Even back when in the 60s, when they would bring somebody in, you had a very defined leader. You had some loudmouth who would come in and say some stuff to the leader. Usually that was Hawkeye. And then you had, a couple people who you were rooting for, maybe Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and you had, this Cap's kooky quartet. Or you had the original 5. Or, when Cap came in issue 4, you had them and Captain America, and it all just flowed pretty well. And the idea that I had was, how many times do we see people just randomly generate a group of characters and nobody has any idea what the guy next to them is playing? Maybe this is more, you see this more at cons nowadays than you do actual campaigns, but I've played in a bunch of games where we randomly rolled up characters and it was like, I have collection, webcasting, and crystallization. Yes! I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, but it sounds exciting, And then you have to spend half an hour trying to read over whatever your power you got in the Ultimate Powers book or the Player's Handbook and try to figure out, how do I make this work, So in my mind, it's just sometimes it's easier if everybody sits down and says, okay, this is sort of what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it.
Yeah, you'd have to sit down and plan things out. I mean, if the GM allows you to pick the type of character you want, unless they're like, nope, you got to roll. So, and then it becomes a little more difficult.
Yeah. And I mean, if you end up, and it also helps when you're trying to build, let's say more of an X-Men type game. Obviously, if you're running a mutant campaign, you're limiting what people are playing, but you don't want everyone to go, oh well, all my characters are, I'm Wolverine, only I shoot laser beams out of my claws, or whatever it is they're doing, or I'm a guy that transforms into metal, just like Colossus, oh come on, give me something a little different, always liked, and I always wished in the movie that Rogue would have gotten super strength just so we could see her like grab a car and flip it sideways or something. Just that momentary burst of, oh my God, the 110-pound girl just threw a Volkswagen half a block.
That would be cool, actually. Yeah, I would like to see
that. But that's the sort of thing I think that is, as a player and as a GM, you sort of need to be aware of that. Don't make it cookie cutter. Obviously, if you have a super speedster, make the super speedster unique in some way. Make them, if you're going to have the guy who's really smart and who builds all the gadgets, make him unique in some way. Don't just, not everybody's a Reed Richards. You know what I mean? Not everybody's a Tony Stark. What if he doesn't have any real money? This guy has maybe typical resources and living out of his parents' basement. And he just, he's got that Peter Parker look and he just can't catch a break. Oh yeah, I could invent a lightsaber. I could build one in my basement, but unfortunately I can't market it because everybody, it's too dangerous. The plasma field will melt your face off within 3 feet.
Doesn't have the resources to keep it together. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So I mean, and like I said, I just think it leads to one. It leads to more interesting role playing. And the other thing is, I think that when you have a player has some say in what it is that they're doing or what it is they're playing, you know, they're going to have more investment in it. They're going to like it. They're going to be like, oh my God, I can build a lightsaber and I've got the resources and I'm going to use it to cut ham. I don't need it for anything else, just ham. I just need to slice my ham really thin, deli slice. And that's all we need.
Jeffrey says the article is from Dragon 171.
That Jeffrey, he's on top of everything.
Well, that's what they're there for. They're there to help us out when we can't figure it out. They'll be like, bam, because they could sit there and do the little research while we can't at the moment.
That's it. That's it. Give Jeffrey the no prize.
I lost it.
That's the whole point of it. We're sending him an empty envelope.
It's in the mail.
It's in the mail.
So I found this article really interesting because it actually made me look at combat from a different point of view now looking at this. Because, as a GM, doing combat since I'm doing heroes as opposed to villains, I have to take combat a little bit differently because I have to think of it from a superhero mindset as opposed to a villain mindset, which most GMs would do. So, thinking about it, I have to be like, well, a superhero wouldn't do this and that, as opposed to a villain would be like, I don't care. I'm just going to go, take a building and smash it down to get rid of the heroes. But the heroes have to be like, whoa, I can't do that, especially if I'm a good hero. I mean, there's some bad heroes, obviously, but it just made me think about combat strategy and how I can have my frontline infantrymen going up there, like, they list Captain America, Black Knight, Mockingbird, Black Panther, Wolverine, etc., those type of foot people to run up and kind of distract the people in the front line and get everybody kind of messed around while you have your support teams like the speedsters, Quicksilver, things like that, running around sabotaging things in the background while they're not paying attention. Meanwhile, you have your superhero, your villains or superheroes that are in the air, blasting them from the side while the infantry is taking them out from the front. Then we have, or artillery who's blasting them from behind the lines. And I thought the interesting strategy in here was have the shock troops, which are some people like She-Hulk, The Thing. People go in there and just bash, like Colossus, go right after them, boom. The Thing uses lampposts and telephone poles all the time, that's being told in chat, which he does. He'll just go in there and just beat the crap out of things, and you have your artillery just back up and just like with their, like Hawkeye stands in the back, blasts them with these arrows and distracts them and blows things up with his arrows, and if they come after him, the infantry, the frontline troops, and the shock troops push them back so he gets to a safe distance and he can start shooting again. I just thought that was a really cool, interesting strategy they had listed here that I've never probably would have thought of. I mean, maybe not even in D&D I would have thought of that, but, you got to get in the right mindset.
I think that's taking from wargaming. And that's, the idea of the mage stays in the background, the fighter goes forward and fights. The cleric can do that sort of, that sort of thing. What was I going to say? I've seen people play characters radically different from one way or the other. I think my favorite trick that somebody did with a speedster one time, it was a teenage girl, and they were in she was a squatter and living homeless. And she's in this grocery store, and the heroes had come in, and they were introducing the character, and they realized she was shoplifting, so they went to go grab her. Not really trying to hurt her, not really realizing what they were up against, and she picks up this bag of rice and sort of tosses it up in the air, and everyone's like, well, okay. So it goes up, starts coming back down, and she swatted the back of the bag of rice, and it blew out like a shotgun.
Nice. Yeah.
And you had rice pellets traveling at subsonic speeds, peppering people, and she used that as her way of getting away from them because everybody ducked for cover, and she took off, and I was like, man, that's awesome. How do you, I think it's just a matter of you got to get the right person to play that sort of stuff.
Being told in chat, rule number 1: players will always come up with weird crap you have not envisioned.
Yeah.
Very true.
This is very true. Very true.
Unfortunately, in my group, the speedster always rolls a 1 when he wants to do anything worthwhile. He usually comes up with something really cool, and then he does it, and he rolls a 1. Now he's to the point that every time we mention something he should do that's cool, he's like, I don't really want to do it. I'm going to roll a 1. I'm going to roll a 1. And he rolls a 1 all the time. It's like he's jinxed when it comes to those things.
Now, just out of curiosity, what's his top speed in the game, or has he figured that out yet?
Mach 3, I think it was.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
I think we compared it when we looked at a couple charts from the book and everything, and it was Mach 3.
Okay. So see, that works out. That's one of those things where obviously, you've allowed him some freedom of that stuff and letting him, so to say, giving him enough rope to hang himself. So, as all good villains will eventually do.
See, the thing is that he's running a lot at Mach 3 and not realizing what Mach 3 does to the surrounding areas every time he runs. So I've been reminding him, like, you're going Mach 3. He's like, yeah, so. I'm like, that you're destroying everything in the path probably around you. He's like, yeah, I'm a villain. I don't care. I'm like, not right now. You might want to, He's also the person that, since right now in my campaign, they're in the What If universe, and they got transported into the superhero bodies of their counterparts. So I decided, what if they were the good guys? So now they have the karma restrictions on them of being good guys to make them be good guys. God. So it's hysterical. Before the game, all the players looked at each other and they're like, okay, we're going to get karma this adventure. Kill no one. 2 minutes into the game, the dude killed like 100 people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And everyone just looked at him and went, dude, you couldn't even last more than 2 minutes without killing somebody? Because he was like, I do this, and I was like, yeah, you just killed a whole bunch of people. You just lost all the karma for this episode. And he was like, oh yeah, that's right. We're not supposed to kill, right? I'm like, yeah.
That's crazy. My cousin and I were talking about one time getting around the karma restriction for, you can only save people, but up to 5 people, it maxes out at 100.
Yeah.
Karma. And so we were sitting there talking. He says, he said, the Flash has really got it figured out. I said, what are you talking about? He says, there's some issue of the Justice League where he goes in and he's got this atomic reactor is going to go critical. So he goes in and takes everybody out of this little Chinese city. And he's like, he did it one person at a time.
Right.
So he got 20 karma each time.
Yep.
Saved like a 250 million people or whatever, and I'm like, that's so wrong. He said, he's the one with all the karma in the group.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a player. That's a player move right there.
Absolutely. So, getting back to the article. So what else would we talk about on here? They also do mention Mentalist as well, and reading the Mentalist strategy in here made me really appreciate how I've been playing a Mentalist versus my players and doing all the weird things that a Mentalist would do. Because I have a mind control character in the supervillain group, and he hasn't done any of these things listed here whatsoever, like doing illusions, screwing people's minds. All he's mostly been doing is just controlling people, trying to control them and give them suggestions. And I'm thinking to myself, why isn't this dude making half the superheroes see certain things, or making them see, do this, or maybe this, have them, one of the superheroes looks at you guys but actually sees other superheroes, things like that. He's not doing anything like that whatsoever, which I'm really surprised at, but I guess he's not realizing what his full mental capacity is under those powers. So I thought that was interesting.
And that goes back to, obviously this is a character UNPC, but that you could easily explain that by saying, he's more of the uh, Electro or Scorpion type character who, they're just in it for what they're in it for. He, if he really put his mind to it, he could probably come up with all sorts of creative, vicious stuff to, play out against people. But he's in it for the quick, easy buck. And maybe that's just an easier way to explain that. Now, could he manipulate people's minds, make them see other things? Sure, he could. And I mean, any mentalist who in the game who really could sit down or any player who could sit down and go, okay, well, I've got telepathy. What can I do with this? And telepathy and telekinesis are nasty in this game because you can really power stunt so much stuff. Whether it's mind blast, kinetic bolt, flight, force fields, mind probe, mind control, illusions. It goes on and on and on. So I mean, half of the mental powers can be power stunted with these two powers. And just being able to having that spin on it, or sitting down and giving some thought and working out with a player what exactly it is they're wanting to do and how they're wanting to do it, I think it helps towards the team building. I think you get into that, and again it goes back to if everybody has an idea of what it is they're trying to do or what they're trying to accomplish, I think people enjoy their character much more when they have a say in what's going on and how it was generated. Then again, I've had people who love just the randomness of it. Oh, I want to roll it up completely random. Okay, so you have water walking, crystallization, and collection. I don't know what you're going to do with this. God, may God have mercy on your soul. Just go on, go do whatever it is you're going to do, buddy.
One of the players who was in my group, he had to leave for various reasons, but his character, he randomly rolled what was it? He had swimming was one of the powers, phasing, which can be really cool if you think about phasing, and super strength. That was what he rolled up for his 3 powers, was swimming, phasing, and super strength. So he made use of those 2 things. The third one, swimming, didn't work out too well for him, and he kind of blended it in with his background. He was like, oh, in high school I was on the swim team, that's why I was really good at swimming, and then maybe that's how my powers mutated because I was in the water at the time. So he kind of came up with a cool backstory of how he got those powers, which I appreciate how people do that, but he didn't know what the heck to do with swimming.
Yeah, that's one of those where you sort of unless you're an aquatic based character, and yeah, obviously that's probably another topic for another time, picking the right locale for your campaign. Because if you roll up an aquatic based character and you live in Phoenix, Arizona, you might have a slight issue. On the other hand, if you have flame powers and you live in Nome, Alaska, you might have an issue. So I think it's just a matter of everybody works together and tries to come up with a creative and interesting way to make the game go.
Yes, roll for the amount of powers, but never select powers without an idea. Random powers just lead to issues. Just ask the Inhumans.
Oh no, the Inhumans are great. Didn't you see that TV? Oh, never mind. We'll talk about that.
Oh my god, that TV series. I had such high hopes for that when it came out, and then I saw that and I was just like, what? Well, who? What?
And here's the issue that I had with that. I saw a bunch of people complain about the costumes, and I'm like, okay, so they're not, they're not comic book accurate costumes. I get it. Okay.
Well, you can't. Sometimes you can't do that. See the X-Men, yellow spandex. I mean, come on. Go on.
And to me, watching the episodes, and I watched the entire series, and the first thing that went through my mind after watching the first episode was, this sounds just like every Inhumans comic book I've ever read. Despite the fact that the characters look little to anything like their actual comic book counterparts, it sounds right. I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense the way they're acting with one another. I think they just tried to push that towards, look, we can't have mutants, so we have Inhumans, and it just didn't work.
Nah, I think they were trying to go with the whole Agents of Shield spin-off because they were trying to, from what I gathered, they were trying to ditch Agents of Shield overall because the
Hmm.
ratings are declining on that show, and they had no involvement with the movies anymore. They really weren't tying things together. Finally, they did towards the end of last season. If you watch Agents of Shield,
Yeah.
we didn't get to see the snap, but we did get to hear about Thanos and everything. So they finally started tying it back in, which makes me hopeful that next season they start to tie in a lot of what happened during that time frame of the snap and afterwards. So we
Yeah.
should see. But yeah, Inhumans, I felt was the going. I felt ABC wanted to replace Agents of Shield with Inhumans to get away from that, since it was already declining as it was, even though it has a
Yeah.
pretty strong fan base right now.
Yeah.
But yeah. But enough about Inhumans.
That's it. That's it. But no, like I said, and I agree with you. A lot of the strategies presented in the articles are pretty interesting. Uh, Using people for shock waves and ground strikes and fastball specials, and you know, I'm wondering where the whole fastball special. I know it came from the X-Men, but I'm wondering, who came up with this idea of, hey, let's pick the little guy up and it's dwarf tossing essentially.
Yeah.
Who came up with this idea, and you know, how do you make that feasible? You know,
That's what we used to do with the halflings in D&D with the barbarian. You would just take the halfling and just pick him up and throw him. Couldn't stand
that's
halflings.
it.
Yeah. So the second article was a superhero campaign is built on more than combat, and it talks about basically goals and how to build a campaign on more than just the standard. You're in your base and the alarm goes off and there is the Legion of Doom, Justice League attack, type thing. I know, wrong.
Meanwhile, at the local Arby's,
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that, with something like that, it's a matter of creating interesting NPCs or keeping enough NPCs around that you're able to work them in. Whether it's, oh, hey, there's something strange. There's something strange is afoot at the Circle K, or oh my gosh, Central Park is being attacked by the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. You gotta. I tell you one that this is something that I trot out in every Marvel game I've ever run, and it's a bit from, if you've ever read the Flaming Carrot comics. There's Bob Burton wrote this, and it's a stupid story. It's the dead dog leapt up and flew around the room. That's the title of the story, and the whole premise behind it is that the main character finds this emaciated dog corpse in a suitcase, and it starts flying around the room, crashing through the headquarters, and he ends up chasing it down, and it's 15 pages of him chasing this thing through the city, it destroying massive property, and then finally him beating it with a baseball bat and killing it, and I've always thought it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I loved it. I loved the whole concept of, it's just some random crap you would see in a comic book, and I would trot it out for every game that I've run. And it's, it finally, somebody who had been through it once before was like, wait a minute, this has happened before in this other game. And I'm like, now that you've done research, oh my gosh, you realize this has happened before. And I actually came up with an explanation for it in the game as to who was behind it, and they were attempting to garner the attention of somebody smart enough to figure out that they were the mastermind behind it. And it was just this, it's like, wait a minute, you mean you came up with this whole plot to draw us in so that we would figure out that you were the villain, so that we would come and arrest you? Yes, that's how I planned on establishing my rep. And it's like, forget it, we're not arresting you. You just go back to what it is you're doing, and we're leaving. So it's crazy. But yeah, anything you can do, make creative NPCs. Maybe the police commissioner doesn't like the superheroes. Maybe that,
Yeah.
there you have, heaven forbid the cops actually have to deal with this sort of stuff, and that's another thing you never really see in the games, and you never really see it in the comic books either. When you do, it's few and far between. Everybody just nowadays is like everybody's got like a police commission, a James Gordon type character that they're hanging on to or that they're friends with or whatever. And what if the cops don't like you? What if the cops just don't like the idea of uh, I don't know, Captain Chaos suddenly showing up in Metro City and fighting crime? Who needs this costume vigilante? That's more paperwork for me. I don't like this guy. And then you got to deal with that. Maybe you're not popular with these guys. Maybe the press doesn't like you. Or worse yet, maybe the press loves you and builds you up to be this, he's the next Captain America. And when you're really the guy with crystallization and swimming and feeble. So
in my campaign, actually, I'm doing something similar to what you're talking about. I took a page out of the. Have you watched The Gifted on Fox at all?
Yes.
So I have the Sentinel Services and the Mutant Registration Act going on in my campaign. So the Sentinel Services and the police and everything else do not like the mutants, do not like superheroes, do not like supervillains, obviously, because they're villains. Yeah. But everybody is on the run from them. The only people that are actually the good guys is Sentinel Services, even though they're not really the good guys. But
yeah,
as far as they know, they're the good guys. And I have sent Sentinel bots after them and the little spider bots and everything. So it's fun to watch those things happen.
They're from the government. They're here to help us.
Yes, they're here. 1984. They're here to help us.
We're going to build a wall. We're going to keep the mutants out.
No, we're not going there. So, anything more we could say about tactics tonight?
Probably, but I mean, let's be honest here. I think we've pretty much said as much as we need to say. I think a lot of this needs to be sort of like seeds of a plant planted, pour some water on it, hope for some sunlight. Maybe someone will come up with some ideas that we didn't think of.
Absolutely, and I would like everyone to email us, leave comments here on the YouTube, and let us know what you think about tactics, what you do in your game. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is our direct email address, or head over to classicfaserip.com and hit contact us and chat us up there, or go on Facebook and find the Classic FaceRip page, and you can leave us comments there as well for this episode. And this shall be live real shortly after we're off the air, so we're going to call it quits for now and come back in another couple weeks with a new episode. Maybe we'll do magic, maybe we'll do something else. I'm not sure. We'll discuss it on the side.
We're gonna make the mutants pay for the wall, and we're gonna make them build it for us. I'm gonna put them to work.
Oh Lord.
No, I'm teasing.
I know. But anyway, we're gonna say goodnight to everyone.